So I want to thank you for joining us today as we continue our study series. I'm Pastor Jerry Burney, and this series today is on science and origins, creation or evolution. You'll notice that the subtitle of the book reads Scientific Evidence Withheld from School Textbooks. In this series, we're touching on some of the highlights in the book on science and its relations to the questions of age, which is the major factor in the creation-evolution debate. These are just some highlights. There's much more to explore in the book. And also, this series does not really get into the other part of the book, which is on ancient civilization. Science is always changing, and we publish news and updates on our website, targettruthministries.com. We also have other study series on Genesis, 1 or 2 creations, and another series on Revelation and the end times. Now, our ministry delivers God's truth to jail and prison inmates all across the United States. If you would like us to mail weekly studies to someone in jail or prison, please email us with their name, their ID number, and their address. Now, as we go through these slides, maybe we can just take a look at where we've been. We've discussed several things. I'll just wander through it here. We've discussed the relationships of the Bible and science. We've also discussed physics, the Big Bang, the speed of light, dark matter, gravity, magnetisms, creation of the planets, the Earth and Moon system. We've discussed the sun and when it might go nova, supernovas, comets. We discussed geology in the Grand Canyon, and last time we left off with a discussion on stalactites and stalagmites. And just to follow up on that, to bring us up to speed, stalagmites and stalactites are theorized to have been formed by water dripping over millions of years. Yet in many caves, bats which have died were buried before their bodies could even decay, indicating rapid burial, not millions of years. So we discussed that a little bit last time. This time we're going to move into the area of mountains and erosion. You'll notice that the mountains around the world actually show very little erosion. Now, science estimates that at the current erosion rates, all the mountains would be flat in 14 million years. Yet the mountain ranges actually show signs of little erosion, indicating recent formation. Scientific evidence confirms that the world's mountains are not millions of years old. Science has now shown that conventional theory of formation of the mountain ranges is flawed. As pointed out in an article in Acts and Facts, the conventional scientific view of slow tectonic plate movements and slow sedimentary buildup over millions of years does not hold up to the fact that erosion rates have been proven to actually be faster than these supposed slow movements. In other words, the conventional scientific view would result in a flat Earth, erosion occurring faster than the formation of the mountains. Now, since the mountains are everywhere and actually show little erosion, they therefore must be of recent formation, perhaps within the last 5,000 years, forming a rapid tectonic plate movements, and these movements would be at a much greater speed, probably in the range of 1 meter per second, especially during a catastrophic event like a great flood. We're going to take another look at another area called sea salt, the amount of salt and minerals in the ocean. And the percentage of minerals and salts in the ocean is 3.6%. And at the current rate of deposits of minerals and salts to the ocean, it's estimated that this level of salts and minerals, 3.6%, would only take about 5,000 years, not millions or billions of years. Even if in the beginning there were no salts or minerals to begin with, we would see the salts we see today within about 5,000 years. So in other words, another evidence of a short time period for the Earth's existence. We'll take a look now at the Gulf of Mexico. As you know, the Gulf of Mexico is slowly filling up each year with deposits brought in from the Mississippi River. And scientists have measured the amounts of deposits which flow into the Mississippi Basin, and they have concluded that the Gulf of Mexico should have filled up in only 30,000 years. Now, because the Gulf is far from being full, the conclusion is that the Earth cannot be billions of years old. Otherwise, it would have filled up a long time ago. Just another case where evidence does not support millions of years for the Earth's age. How about helium? Helium is another area in which we can show a young Earth. Scientists have measured the amounts of helium in the atmosphere and determined that even if there was no helium present at the very beginning, it would take only 2 million years for the present helium levels to accumulate. That was 2 million, not 4.5 billion years, which is the estimate by evolution for the Earth, the age of the Earth. In other words, even if there's no helium at all in the very beginning, it would only take a matter of a couple million years for all the helium that we see to accumulate. Well, let's take a look at another area here. Sand and stone. It's amazing how fast sand can turn into stone. Science has analyzed sand dunes, and they have discovered that in as little as 5 years, a sand dune deposit can be glazed or frosted and turned into solid sandstone. If dry winds are available after a flood, this can happen within 5 years. However, conventional science estimates that the Sahara Desert has been developing over a period of 4 to 6,000 years. So it's easy to see that what we see around us, the sandstones, the deserts, the amount of helium, the Mississippi deposits into the Gulf of Mexico, the salts in the sea, the erosion rates in the mountains, everything we see actually points towards a young Earth, not an old Earth. Well, let's look at another area. And this is a picture of the Earth showing the original land formation in the very beginning, Pangea. And if you're interested, as part of our ministry, we do have available an Earth time chart. If you email us, we'll be glad to send you a copy of it. And it points out the conventional scientific hypothesis and the actual scientific evidence that we find, along with the timeline comparing the Bible to science. Very interesting study. So I want to share with you a little bit about plate tectonics here. And we'll take a look at, and one of the other things here is these rocks with clams. I've got a piece of rock here with all kinds of clam shells in it. These are found all over the world on high mountains, and we'll discuss a little bit about that. It turns out that sudden crust movement could answer many questions which conventional theories of plate tectonics cannot. Plate tectonics meaning slow movement of the Earth, slowly building up the mountains. But there could be rapid crust movement, as we will discover. There are problems such as how formations all around the world, from the Grand Canyon to the Himalayas, actually show evidence of sudden formation in the rock layers. These rock layers show evidence of bending and curving as if they had been formed while still soft as part of a one-time event. Conventional theories of slow plate tectonics and sedimentation cannot account for all these geologic patterns. It's interesting to note that all the mountain ranges in the world show evidence at the very top of the mountains that they were once part of the ocean floor. Not only are clams found at the top of these highest peaks, including Mount Everest, the highest peak, but many of these clams are found in the closed position, which means that they were buried while still alive and could not open up. Furthermore, Bob Kornike, in a 2007 National Geographic documentary, he reported that clams found at 14,000 feet still had organic material in them. This material was still testable, and this material tested to less than 40,000 years, not millions of years. Dr. John Morris, in an article titled "When Did the Mountains Rise?", has collected data from various investigators along with a similar chart from Ollier and Payne in a document called "The Origin of Mountains." And they note that all the mountains around the world seem to have come into existence at the same basic time, all during the same period of Earth activity. Now, Scientific American in September of 2005, in a special edition on Earth, they reported that geologists agree that the Earth was covered with a worldwide flood with waters up to 800 feet deep, higher than today's sea levels. And gigantic mountain ranges were formed in the aftermath of this global event. This flood, they say, also accounts for the massive extinctions seen around the world at about the same time. Now, of course, these scientists say that this occurred between 120 and 125 million years ago, whereas the Bible states this occurred about 5,000 years ago. So we must remember that science also states that the mountains will totally erode in 14 million years, yet they're still here. And furthermore, they appear sharp and hardly eroded at all, quite young, in fact, is the way they appear. Today, 70% of the Earth is covered with water. Now, if the Earth were flat, the mountains, say, were eroded down and flattened, as should occur in about 14 million years, there's enough water in the planet to cover the Earth to a depth of 7,500 feet, about 1.5 miles. That's how much water there really is present on our planet. Plenty of water to cover the Earth if the mountain ranges were a little lower. Let's talk a little bit about ice. Ice is an interesting subject. We use ice all the time to try to measure long periods of time. They're always doing ice cores and taking a look in the Earth. At the northern tip of the Greenland ice sheets, at a place called Camp Century, ice is measured to a depth of 4,000 feet, and it's been calculated to be only 6,000 years old, after accounting for compaction and precipitation rates, and the number of annual oscillations of oxygen isotopes, and the number of layers showing high particulate levels at periods of volcanic activity. And all these are historically correlated to eruptions from as far back as 553 AD. Now, conventional scientists who presume long periods of time for the Earth's development, they point to core samples taken from the 12,000-foot Antarctic ice flow as examples of very old ice formations. But oxygen isotopes cannot verify the old age they are theorized. Further, these theories of old age are based upon accepting today's snowfall rates as the typical rates for thousands of years. Scientists from both paradigms, long time period and short time period for the Earth, they agree that great flooding and catastrophic events took place before the recent ice age. These events would have greatly increased precipitation rates at the lowest levels. And these higher precipitation rates, to scientists using the recent time period for the Earth, the short time period, these rates correlate to a young Antarctic ice age and a young Antarctic ice sheet as well. And they easily explain the thickness of 12,000 feet. Scientists with conventional theories of long time periods, they suggest there was more than one ice age covering millions of years, and scientists using the short time age for the Earth, they point out that Pliocene fossils are rare in glaciated areas, which is mysterious. If there were many interglacials, there should be more of these fossils. Practically all the megafaunal extinctions were after the last formation, a difficult problem if there was more than one ice age. Now, geologic studies indicate that both polar ice caps appear to have started at the same time. A.D. Watt in Secrets of the Polar Ice state that many are convinced that the ice receded in hundreds of years, not tens of thousands of years. Thermal analysis is in comparison with the ice cores from the polar caps, indicate that the ice age extended from about 2000 BC to about 1000 BC. At the 1992 annual meeting of the American Geophysical Union, scientists, many of whom have been puzzled by theories of occurrences of ice ages during times when the Earth was supposedly warm, they presented evidence rejecting all theories of multiple ice ages, carving out the Earth's surface. These new theories of land formation are based upon research by Vern Overbeck, John Marshall, and Hans Argervall at the NASA Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California. And they show that tillite deposits, usually attributed to glaciers, are also found in deposits left by large meteors. New York University geologist Michael Rampino advanced the theory that catastrophic meteor collisions contributed to the geology we observe today, not slow ice ages. Again, billions or even millions of years are not needed. Now, ice core rings are attributed to summer melt and winter freeze. Science measured 263 feet of ice pack in only 48 years from 1942 to 1990, and that was in Greenland. And that's up to 5.5 feet per year. Now, during these 48 years, the scientists did not find 48 ice rings, representing one for each year. The scientists discovered hundreds of ice rings, indicating hundreds of melts and freezes. It became obvious that the ice core rings represented not years, but melts, many of which can occur in a single year. The newer estimate for the Greenland ice sheet is now 1,800 years, as opposed to the older estimate of over 4,000 years. Dr. Donald Patton, who's a geographer at the University of Washington, he proposed a scientific answer to various unexplainable historical facts. As you know, mastodons, mammoths, rhinos, and other animals have been found quick frozen with buttercups and daisies still in their mouths. Now, you don't find buttercups and daisies growing in the ice, so they must have been in a climate that would allow them to grow, and yet they were found quick frozen. Also, another mystery is solid ice formations exist to this very day in volcanic tubes, where water flow and temperature cannot create the ice in the first place, and even further, it cannot support the ice for tens of thousands of years. Yet they're still here. I don't know if you've ever been to a volcanic a lava tube that's got ice in it. It's really unique to see. But one thing we know is that they could not be formed there by the current Earth temperatures, and the ice cannot be sustained there for tens of thousands of years. And yet they're still there, pointing to a young age. Another mystery is the size and volume of the ice ages themselves. It cannot be explained by any scientific method. The ice is estimated by scientists to have been 15 to 20 million cubic miles of frozen water. And the ice was divided between the two magnetic poles, north and south, not the two geographic poles. So there's some interesting things the scientists have come up with. The ice also during the Ice Age rose to heights of 17,000 feet, covering an area of 11,000 square miles per scientist. Now, to form 17,000 feet of ice would require over 1 million inches of snow to fall. And there's no scientific explanation by conventional science that can explain this. Now, if the ice were to have been spread evenly over the entire planet, it would make an ice layer about 400 feet thick. Ice to this day is still located 5,000 feet below sea level at the pole in an otherwise salty ocean basin. Now, all this evidence that we see today, all these anomalies that we just pointed out, they point to some catastrophic event at the time of the mammoths about 5,000 years ago. Science has determined that the mammoths suffered asphyxiation resulting from temperatures at or below 100 and negative 150 degrees. In other words, something quick froze all these animals and everything all at once. And another possibly related problem along these same lines for conventional science, trying to explain the formation of granite. Granite seems to have been formed rapidly in a cool state, and yet conventional science believes the Earth was hot and molten when the granite rocks were somehow formed. So science still doesn't know how granite formed, but they think it might have something to do with the same event that quick froze the mammoths. Now, Dr. Patton theorizes that about 5,000 years ago, at the time of the freezing of these mammoths and other animals, the Earth's orbit passed within 10,000 miles of an asteroid or comet or possibly even an icy moon or a planet like Mars. And further, this object would have been at least 250 to 280 miles in diameter in order to contain enough ice to cause what happened on the Earth. Now, as our Earth's orbit passed within 10,000 miles of this icy object, the object would break apart and the resulting ice particles would enter into the Earth's gravitational and magnetic fields. Now, the ice dropped mostly upon the two magnetic poles, according to science, and it turns out that ice particle can take on magnetic charges, causing a massive freeze at the two magnetic polar regions, just as evidence and science records. Now, some of the ice particles would fall in the warmer regions of the Earth as rain, causing flooding. The massive ice formations at the poles would then begin to melt, causing periods of flooding and rising sea levels, which scientific evidence all support. Now, this type of comet or asteroid or icy moon capture, breakup by the Earth, could explain today's catastrophic geological makeup and unnatural scientific facts like the ones we've been discussing, which otherwise cannot be explained by any conventional scientific understanding today. Well, there's other anomalies in the Earth as well that point to a young age for the Earth. One of them is an area of oil and gas. You all recall these pictures of seeing oil wells where the oil is just shooting out of the ground. Nobel Prize medalist Dr. Melvin Cook has studied oil and gas well pressures and the permeabilities of the surrounding trap formation. And he has concluded that oil and gas deposits have resulted from sudden deep burial of organic material in a relatively short period of time ago. Cook notes that abnormally high pressures of up to 8,000 pounds per square inch are found relatively frequently in deep oil wells, and points out that the oil has not been in the ground for a long period. Using the measured values of the permeability of the rock surrounding the oil well, it's possible to compute the time it would take for the oil to seep through the rocks to the surface and infinity of the surrounding strata. And now what happens is you've got this oil under pressure in the ground, and it's under tremendous pressure, and it actually wants to seep into the surrounding rock strata where it's at. Now, Cook reported that the time required for a typical oil well to dissipate in this manner is on the order of as little as 4,000 years. These calculations are based upon the dynamics of fluid flow through porous media, an area of science that is considered to be well proven and non-controversial. Recently, E.F. Blick made similar calculations for deep gas deposit reservoirs and found that the high-pressure gases would dissipate in periods shorter than 10,000 years, again pointing to a young age for all these deposits. In other words, all the oil and gas deposits we see in the world, the only reason they're still under pressure is because they're less than 10,000 years old. If 10,000 years had gone by, they would have all dissipated by now. Well, there's another area which also points to a young Earth for us, and that's the area of coal deposits. One other comment on oil before we move on to coal, and it's kind of an interesting thing. In New Zealand and Australia, sewage is being converted to oil in just 30 minutes, showing that long time periods for millions of years are not really necessary for formation of oil fields. What's necessary is pressure and heat, the very things that you would find if the Earth were going through a catastrophic breakup. So coal. Coal is shown to be a product of rapid burial, such as that of a flood or other catastrophic event. Scientists, using the parameters of long time periods for the formation of the Earth, they suggest that coal resulted from gradual sedimentary formation involving millions of years. Evidence, however, supports the other side of science, a short time period, rapid burial, and a young Earth. It's very common to find marine fossils, including fish and mollusks and brachiopods, in coal, along with fossils of plants and animals not associated with marine swamps. In other words, there's all kinds of stuff there that doesn't belong in these coal deposits, indicating that there was some kind of a rapid burial, a big flooding event. Often, tree trunks are found extended through several layers of coal beds, sometimes upside down. The hollow trunks are commonly filled with rocks unlike the immediate surrounding area, again evidence supporting rapid burial, such as a flood. You'll notice in the picture we have on the slide here, this is a typical picture, and there was even a program in National Geographic years ago showing tree trunks extending through layers and layers and layers of coal formation, which means that it didn't take millions and millions of years for those layers to build up. Obviously that tree trunk was existing through them all. Now, coal can be made out of grass in only a matter of hours by science today. Coal fields show textures like rapid burial of chunks of vegetation, whereas peat bogs with slow sedimentary buildup show texture like coffee grounds. Obviously, our coal beds were the result of rapid burial, such as that which occurred in a major flood. These fossils, such as trees which extend up through several layers, are called polystrate fossils. In other words, fossils that extend through many strata, polystrate. And they're very common. The National Geographic published pictures from Tennessee showing fossilized tree extending upward through several layers of coal, embedded shale, and several other layers of earth. The tree was preserved, meaning that all of those layers formed as a result of one single catastrophic event. We'll move into the magnetic field now. Take a look at what the magnetic field might show us about the age of the Earth. All agree that the magnetic field deteriorates over a 10,000 year period. Unless there is some method to recharge the field strength, the magnetic field will drop to zero eventually. Scientists also conceptually need an Earth billions of years old. They put together a theory that suggests that there's some dynamo beneath the Earth's surface which recharges polarity every 10 to 70,000 years after this magnetism falls. This theory has been severely challenged in recent years. Observations and measurements have given even more evidence of a young Earth, supporting young Earth scientists today. Magnetic patterns worldwide are stronger and weaker. They're not reversals. And we're going to continue this in our next study. I thank you for joining us in this study. If you should know of anybody in jail or prison, or your church knows of anybody, a family that has someone in jail or prison, please contact us. We'd be glad to send out messages to them each and every week. And reach us on our website at targettruthministries.com.